shit. And I'm happy that he's back in action and doing what he loves to do, because before him with his work schedule and everything was crazy, it was so hard on him, you know. And I had him over here for actually a podcast where we sat down and talked about, you know, what he was doing musically and that kind of stuff, and you know what he had when he was on tour and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden, you know, he had kind of lost that love for it.
Yeah,
it was so hard for him to do two things. So when I just recently reached out to him, he was like, "Man, I'm back in it. Like, hit me up."
I'm so excited to hear that, man.
And I happened to mention that I'm having you on the podcast, so he was like, "The fuck, I got to call him right now." So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Derek and Friends podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. I have a wonderful and special guest in the house, the one and only Ray Sanchez.
Hello.
The legendary Ray. What's going on, man?
Dude, it's so fucking good to see you again, man.
I was just explaining this to my roommate, because I was like, yeah, I showed, because I've been bragging about you for the last few days.
Thank you, man.
You know, you're obviously a talented individual, being a musician, and what you've been able to accomplish in your career with music, man, it's amazing, right?
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
I followed a lot of your social media posts. Your insane stadium, or what is it? You're in stadiums now. You're on huge stages. It's crazy. You're living the rock star life, dude. I think it's super dope.
Oh man, it's more than I deserve, for sure. It's every time is just an absolute blessing. So and I'm surprised by everything that ever happens, because it was all kind of a glorious accident. It was never really supposed to happen, but it's here, and I'm grateful for every day that I still get to do it. So.
Yeah, man. I still drive, like I obviously still work for the same company I do now, and every morning I still stop by the same donut shop, and every time I turn left into that parking lot, I see your old band sticker. And I can't remember the name of the band that saved my life right now.
That's okay.
But I can't. And I was like, I'm thinking about, like, shit, I probably should know this, but every time I drive by, I'm like, oh, fucking Ray, dude. Like, and I was explaining this to my friends about how we met, and this long time ago.
How long has it actually been?
Ooh, I want to say I was probably,
because we're talking like 2011.
11. Yeah, 2011, 2012. Because
dude, I've known you for 10 years. You're one of my oldest friends.
Sooner than that, actually. Sooner than that, because I think I wasn't even old. I wasn't even 21 yet. I think I was younger than that. I had to have been, because I was living at that time. I was living on Bowline here in town, and I had been working for another company. I was 19, 20. So it was probably 2010.
Wow, man.
Yeah, man. It's a long time ago. And I still remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. That you were teaching back then, though, right? You were still.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, very, very much more involved into that. But dude, it's so crazy to like you're looking good and everything, man. Like, and like you're doing your thing, and like you can tell like you're stoked on life. Like I'm very happy to see you, and
Thanks,
I'm so proud of you for like all you've been doing. That's awesome.
Yeah, and like I said, I was, you know, I was just talking about. It was actually funny. I was at work, and I was talking to another person about how when we met, you know, we had this kind of weird kind of music connection, so to speak, right? And at that point in time, I had never experienced something like that before. So I remember you were in the back room with, you had this, basically it was a stage set up in that wherever you were working there. It was like it was in Dixon. I remember where it was in Dixon.
Oh yeah, it was a building where they just had a bunch of band equipment set up, and then I was a teacher there. It didn't last very long, but for the time being, it was really cool. I used to spend a lot of time there.
Yeah, I remember, or I recall being there. I remember how you guys were hanging out in the back. I remember we'd gone there with a couple of my buddies, and we were hanging out with some girls. It was a fun time. And I went to the front while everyone was partying, and just went over and grabbed a acoustic guitar off the wall and was like, hey, I'm just going to jam. And one of your friends or guy you knew was like, hey, he came out there and heard me play guitar. And he's like, fucking bring that shit back real quick. Hold on, bring it back. So then again, we sat down and we just played. I remember I played my... the first song I wrote was Life Divided. I played that one because it was the most like tight song I had that was full, and I knew how to, you know, play it through. And I remember kind of leaning. I didn't even think I told you what key it was in. I think I just started playing it, and you were like, "It's okay." Like you're just like you. I think Mary, you said specifically, just let it go, bro. Just play. I got you. And to this day, man, that was like one of coolest experiences I've ever really had when it came to music. You know, it was.
I'm honored, man. Thank you.
It was
That's
a really
awesome.
cool experience because we got to kind of like mind meld. It was weird. Like even my friends who were there who have no musical talent whatsoever or don't have ears for music or just, you know, they were just like, dude, that shit was sick. And I remember
That's cool.
Manuel, who was there, Manuel Borgs, shout out to you, long time no see, brother. He was like, fuck, no one recorded that shit? And then I was like, yeah, I kind of was bummed out. But then a part of me was like, that's great. I kind of like that because
that moment belonged to us.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's forever seared in my mind of what it was like, what it felt like, and everything. And there's no physical evidence to show it. It's just I know what happened. I know what I felt. So
Yeah, definitely.
it was a really cool experience, man. So
That's awesome.
I'm glad that I got to share that with you, man. But,
I'm super glad too, dude. And like, there's something I think kind of significant about the fact that no one like sat there on a phone and then just like, you know, and, like
Right.
we all experienced that in the moment, and that moment now forever. I mean, it solidified our friendship going forward, I think, because like I had the same thing. Like I spent a lot of time alone just in a practice room, and you know, I jammed with maybe 2 people, but that was, you were actually thinking about it now, like one of my first steps into branching out from like maybe the 2 people that I really knew.
okay.
Because I had solidified a relationship with them as far as the music went, but then you came in and then and that was it. And so from there, like you were the building block to all that was to come later on, which is really cool.
Wow.
So actually, you hold more of a significant place in my musical adventure than, you know, I realized until just now, funny enough.
Wow.
So yeah, like
That's
you're one of the absolute pillars, dude. Like,
right on,
which is
man.
cool.
I appreciate that, and you know, I have tons and tons of things I want to talk to you about, and I want to know everything, man.
Let it rip, man. Absolutely.
But I mean, I guess where I want to start is I want to like what started you down the path of music? What was the first thing that kind of got you into it?
Well, as far as listening to music, my dad was very instrumental in that because he's a big Van Halen fan, but he's also just a big music fan in general. I mean, he introduced me to everything from Clapton to Helen Wolf to Stevie Ray Vaughan was a big favorite of his. And then he also, you know, like now that I had the building blocks of like, you know, blues music and stuff like that, he introduced me to Van Halen, a big Van Hagar fan, but then he also introduced me to like the S&M record by Metallica.
Okay.
Which, funny enough, I guess was my introduction into like symphonic metal. Now that I look back at it, because when you hear Demo 4 years later, you're like, wait, I've heard this before. And then you go to, you know, I'm like, oh yeah, Metallica's S&M when they had the orchestra and everything like that. So there was that, and then my mom was more into more of the hip hop and R&B kind of stuff. So then you kind of get a, you know, little step of groove in there. And then my aunt Shelley was a big like grunge, Alice in Chains, a Soundgarden fan, and she's actually, if you look in the Bon Jovi video, I think for Bad Medicine, she's in the video. It was
shit.
yeah, she followed him across like state lines, and yeah, like
Fucking loyals, bro.
Absolutely.
Fucking loyal fans.
and she was the, like, you know, the big hair and like, you know, the outfit and everything. Like she was like that 80s girl, and I think it was in Mountain View, California, that they filmed, and she was just in the crowd, and so forever solidified in the in a Bon
that's
Jovi music
cool.
video. But yeah, I remember she gave me just a bunch of CDs one time, and it had Alice in Chains' Facelift in it. I think like 3 Alice in Chains from them, and my dad was a big Alice in Chains fan too. So I just kind of had this smorgasbord of stuff, and then being an angry young teenager, you find out who Slayer
There it
is.
That's right.
And
That's
then-
right.
Yeah, definitely. And but as far as playing, there's this gentleman named Trey Randall who I went to school with, and I was never really talented in anything really. I've always had to work hard at anything that I enjoyed. And we were skateboarding and riding bikes just across town. I lived on Elm Drive in Dixon by Hall Park at the time.
Familiar.
And so we go down the road, and I think I almost get hit by a car, so I freak out, and like we like go to his house, and he has this first act like blue guitar that he got
Yes.
from Walmart. Yeah,
Fuck yes.
And it had like 3 strings on it, and he just thinks like he's the coolest dude ever, and he's still like to this day like I love that kid. And he like plays Smoke on the Water with his thumb on like the open 3/5, open 3/6/5. And then he was just like, yeah, and we were just kind of passing it around. He passed it to me, and then I did what he did. Just it like I watched him do it, and it made sense. And he kind of went like, I thought you said you never played. I was like, I haven't. And so I spent 3 hours in his garage just like doing that, dun, 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 dun. And then I went home and I was like, Dad, I need a guitar like right now. And so Mom went to go to a flea market, got a little classical, which I put acoustic strings on. By the way, if you do that, don't. I ruined that thing.
Not designed for that.
Not designed for that at all. Not designed for steel strings. But I did it. I didn't have a teacher, so I essentially failed until I got it right. I learned how to read tablatures on my own, but then after months, I was like, oh, I'm doing this backwards. So like if you look at a tablature, yeah. I was doing it upside down. I was like, why does this not sound like the AC/DC riff I'm trying to play? And I was like, oh, wait, you got to, okay.
That's how it starts, man. I did the exact same thing. I started with tablature, and I was like, hey, how do I figure this out? Because, of course, I wasn't really going through it. I had started taking lessons in the beginning and learning the notes and learning how to read music.
What age were you?
I started when I was legitimately, I think I was 13 or 14 when I started. And I took lessons here right next to that place by Digger's Deli.
Nice.
There's a little shop there. I took lessons, and I liked it. It was great. I fucking wanted to break my guitar a couple hundred times.
Yeah.
Especially the building of the calluses part. That shit sucked. But
oh yeah.
But then eventually I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm done taking lessons. I'm just gonna try to figure this out, right? Because we hadn't even worked on chords. We had worked on tempo and progress, like putting something together, strumming patterns, all that stuff. That's just shit I figured out on my own because, I would practice the same thing over and over. So like my concept of like learning something would be to practice it until it's like it sounds fucking pretty. It sounds really good, and I'd play the same shit. So whenever I would take that skill and apply it to every song or every piece of a song. So I like, for instance, now it's to the point where I can pull up a song, hear it, and essentially start to play it right away because like how I hear the progression or I hear the strumming pattern, and I'm like, okay, I got this. This is easy.
Nice.
And I always find it's always interesting when I hang out with people like friends who aren't musically inclined. They don't ever play music. They don't ever do that, and they're just like, how the fuck can you just? And I'm like, dude, this. In my opinion, it's like a natural thing in the music world sometimes where people can just hear it and play it because we're constantly trying to challenge ourselves and learn new stuff and try new stuff.
Yeah. And
when you're doing that all the time, you're like, okay, I can hear if a song's complete or on the radio and you're hearing it, I can go, okay, I can figure out what note that is. I can play that or I can do that. And some people are just like, that's just incredible. And I'm like, in my opinion, it's just like a regular average day. It's just another Tuesday.
There you go.
I mean, for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, man. So you started playing guitar. You're in a garage for 3 hours mastering it, and then what happened then? What happened after that?
So Mom went and got me the $20 classical, and then I just read tablatures wrong, and then it was like, I don't know what it would even be akin to, but like it was the first thing that made sense and that I think I found a home in. And so it was just like a compulsion. And it made sense, but my hands didn't work like the way I wanted them to. So I kind of like you said, like it had to be done constantly. Oh, yeah. Like it very much was something that I failed at, and then did it wrong enough to where I was like, okay, I've done everything wrong. Now I know how to do it right, type thing. And all of a sudden, the hair starts growing out. I give my skateboard away, and I'm just like, I don't need any of this stuff anymore. This is what's going on. And years pass by, and I think at 2 years later, I started teaching just because I compulsively learned so much. I still lived on Elm Drive. I would ride my bike to the Dixon Library. I would print out just stacks of tablatures from songs that I knew. Because once I kind of had a foothold into like one song, then it's funny, you actually bring up a good point, because the idea that if you hear something, you kind of know how to play it. Mm-hmm. If I heard a chord played by someone like AC/DC, I heard something akin to that in Clapton or Stevie Ray Vaughan and then Van Halen, and I was like, okay, well, what are they doing now? And so and then I go and I like reading this, and I'm like, oh, it's kind of the same thing. This is just played louder, and then you kind of do the thing. And so I'm playing all these electric guitar songs on a shitty acoustic, and then my granddad gets me like one of those Squier Strat player packs.
Okay.
And then, so that was the first as far as electric. And then my dad got me a Washburn Nuno Betancourt model with like a Floyd Rose.
Okay.
Yeah. And so now I'm like, oh, wow. Like now I could do the Eddie Van Halen stuff, which I was super excited about. He was my guy for like the longest time. But I had no idea how to like set it up or anything like that.
Right.
Because with Floyd's, I mean, you know just as well as I do. I mean, like there's knowledge that you have to have in order to like just maintain something like that.
Eddie Van Halen would turn away from the crowd. His stuff was so innovative in his time.
Oh yeah.
That when he would perform live, he would literally turn away from the crowd.
Oh yeah.
So they couldn't see what he was doing. He was that innovative at the time. He's like, I don't want anybody knowing what I'm doing.
Yeah, like Steve.
That's insane.
Absolutely.
Like I'm just like, nope, I'm not going to show you. I mean, you see all these other guitarists go out there. I mean, you have all these amazing artists that come out and they're just like, oh yeah, we'll go out and play, and they play normally. This person's like, nope, I'm not showing shit because I'm doing something no one's ever done.
Yeah, and now his unconventional approach now is convention, which is crazy to think. Like him doing it, what I'm sure some would say, like you're not supposed to play like that, and it's like. Now everyone does. Like he is absolutely a pillar of a building block of every guitar player's journey. You know, like I remember when he passed away. I think it was someone like some big guy like John Petrucci or something. He was like, "We're all orphans now."
Jesus.
And because it in a way it's like it's true. Like he's the guy for so many people. Because with Hendrix, he was the first guy to string like. Pedals together from what I've read. Like other than that, you had like one pedal. He was like, well, I'm going to hook all these guys up and tandem in a line. And that's how if you listen to, his live at Woodstock stuff, you're just hearing all this warbly, crazy stuff. And so that was like, step number one. And I think the most innovative since that one was Eddie for sure. Because he took, the foundation of what I think Jimmy did, and then he just completely took it into the stratosphere. And then you have guys like Steve Vai and Chris Broderick and all those guys who can just and
flat out play.
Oh yeah, very much so. And that's kind of I think what enticed me most about the world of music at large, because I started seeing people in the corners of every room that I was in. Because when I was just trying to, be the cool motocross kid with like the spiked hair and stuff like that. I very much was trying to be something that I really was not. And when I brought a guitar to school, I remember the first time like I brought a guitar to school, and I subsequently became like the guitar guy. People like who I normally would have just passed by started coming up and be like, "Hey, man," and like people who ended up being nice and very, very cool. Like. Funny enough, my two best friends growing up were both named Rob Muma, and then Rob. We call him Rob Gnarly, but his name is actually Rob Moody. And it's funny because I often make the joke that like a lot of my heroes are dead, like Stevie Ray Vaughan, Roy Gallagher, Eddie Van Halen, and stuff like that. But as far as like someone who was instrumental in making me a better, not only better human but a better musician, it's honestly my friend Robert Moody. Because he was the one who was like, so when you play a note, do this. And I was like, what is that? And he's like, that's called vibrato.
Right.
And he's like, do that because you sound like you're scaring the fucking thing. So like, and I was like, oh shit. All right. So like, because I would watch like, I would sit on my dad's couch and I would watch Stevie Ray Vaughan videos, and then I would just fail until I got it right. And I was like, what is that thing he's doing? And then Rob's like, oh, that's this. And like every day, like I would be sitting in class doing this and just looking like a goon, just for no. And one day I figured out, I was like, oh, okay. And then he's like, this is how you set up a Floyd Rose. Because I called him, I was like, I think I broke it.
Jesus.
Yeah, but so I meet these people, and they're like, yeah, this is who AC/DC is. This is who Lynyrd Skynyrd is, and I'm just filling my head with all these bands. Like, wow, this is crazy. How did they make that sound? He's like, oh, well, he has this pedal. And I'm like, pedals? What is? And then like the wah thing, and now it's like everything that I've heard from my dad and his Camaro my whole life. It makes sense, and I'm like, wow, this is how these sounds are made. What if you do this and this? And so now I have this creativity outlet, and I have good friends who, I mean, I just saw Rob Moody the other day. And it just, I never put it down, because it made sense, and it also brought me closer to people who were genuine, and it gave me a home inside of a place where at the time I didn't feel like I had one. And in a way, a big way actually, it brought me closer to my father, because for a long time, like, you know, every young man at some point will be at odds, you know, in like the teenage years with their old man and stuff like that.
Yep.
And I was definitely no stranger to that, but like it gave him and I an understanding of each other and like where he came from. And like when he showed me Prince and, you know, like bands like that, and like he started telling me memories of when he was a kid, like I heard this song and then this is the memory attached to it. And then I started to have those memories, like, you know, like girl you have your first kiss with, like what song is playing in the background, right? For me, it was probably like The Used or My Chemical Romance or something like that. But for my dad, it was Prince. And so, you know, you hear these songs and then you start to kind of see ghosts of people that you genuinely hold dear to you. And you're like, wow, this song reminds me of their innocence, right?
Okay.
And so it was the glue that brought me closer to things that I really genuinely needed. But then there was the other side of the coin with like Slayer and Meshuggah and stuff like that. I was like, wow, this is catering currently to the angst that I feel from anything that any young man will go through, not fitting in, you know, girls don't like you that you like or something like that. And
It's just an outlet, man. It gives you.
Yeah.
And I can completely agree when in that context, because I think a lot of times, first of all, music has this ability to connect people regardless of whoever you are. You know, the fact that you rolled into school with it, and someone says it's like, I mean, we used to work together, and you rolled into work with your Flying V, and I was just like, what? You're like, yeah, I play guitar. I was like, what? Like at that point, I already knew you, but I was like, oh shit, okay. Like I remember, you know, being on overnights or being wherever I was and just being like, hey man, I wrote this new song, check it out. And you're like, fuck yeah, I'll check it out. And you'd be in the parking lot practicing your Flying V. You'd just be out there just jamming along.
Obsession. I couldn't
Right?
stop. Couldn't put it down.
And I completely understand that premise, because a lot of times, you know, when I'm with everything going on in your life, sometimes, you know, you figure out that, you know, you make time for the things that are important to you, you know, and music now is a part of my life. I can't see myself like not playing a guitar, not singing, not doing something. It would be just the worst atrocity to not do that. Just to be like, all right, well, I'm done playing this shit, I'm gonna go pack it all. It would be horrible for me. Like that thought would be like, what the this is who I am now.
Oh yeah,
It's a part of me. And I know it's something like a lot of times a lot of my friends know I play guitar, obviously, but it's like sometimes I'll you know, you have your coworkers and stuff like that have no idea, and they're like, oh wait, you play guitar? And I'm like, yeah, I've been playing it for like 15 years. Like, oh no shit. And then it's like, I've always found that kind of interesting when, you know, you meet, you know, you have your coworkers or you have your friends, right? And your friends all know you play, and they know it's like, you know, and then someone finds out, like, or they see a YouTube video, they're like, you fucking do that? Like, that's dope.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with you, because I mean, you got the voice to go along with the playing too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Like I said, you and I have talked multiple times about you know, we've swapped projects we're working on and swapped stuff. I remember that time I went out to Sacramento to see you, and you were living out there, and we swapped some ideas. You were doing a lot of funky blues, funk and blues kind of mixture. It was really cool progression you put together.
Thanks.
And then I was like, fuck, I'm gonna have to show him my shit. I was like, it was just really, it was well put together. I mean, obviously you don't write lyrics, it was just instrumental. So I was like, that's really, really cool. And then I'm like, here, let me play my power ballad real quick, or my really soft ballad song. And you were like, that is really cool. And I was just like, you're just saying that, bro. You're just saying that. But
I wasn't, by the way. It's fantastic. It is great. He sells himself short. He's a lot better. He's humble about it, but he's a lot better than he makes it out to be.
So it was just funny because I remember talking to Mark about this too, and I was telling Mark like, hey, it was so crazy to be able to sit down and show him some of this stuff. And whenever you're doing that as an artist, it's tough because you're kind of showing a piece of yourself, a personal piece of yourself. And,
Oh, yeah.
and I know a lot of people don't understand that right at first. A lot of people don't understand that. They're just like, "Oh, wrote the song, check it out." And as you get older and like you start to get better with your writing and you start to put more stuff together, it's like you start to realize like I'm giving you a piece of me right here. Like you gotta, and it's kind of strange. It's a personal
You're being vulnerable.
thing. Yeah, you're being extremely vulnerable. And I was talking to him about it, and he's like, dude, like, raise the fucking shit. He's gonna listen to your stuff and be like, 100%.
I love him, man.
Involved. He's great, dude, man. I love Mark. And he's gonna just say how what he thinks, and if you ask him, he's gonna say, hey, listen, this is this. And he'll be honest. And the truth is, he's like, every musician has like their trade or what they do or has their skill level or whatever, but we can all learn from one another the same. And I thought when my younger years, I had this egotistical mindset when it came to music. I had to be the best, and I whenever someone was better than me, I got pissed off, or I wouldn't play. I'd just get jealous, and I remember there was a point in my life when I don't know if it was before I met you or like probably a couple of years before that when I think it was probably when I joined my band when I was 21, and where I realized that ego mind had to stop because it was only hindering me from being better, and how it was hindering me is I couldn't grow. I was doing the same thing. I was playing the same type of songs. It was very repetitive. It was I'm like, okay, these are good, but they're all the same. They're all in the same key, or I'm doing the same notes but in a different way. And I basically went, okay, I need to stop that. I need to start learning. Anybody who's better than me, I need to think of it as, it's an opportunity to learn something, just to see what they're doing differently, right?
That's a man move right there, dude.
Right,
Absolutely.
And just swallowing your pride and just being like, dude, what are you doing right there? Or hey, like that's really dope. Let's just jam out real quick, And because I went to go jam with Mark once, and his drumming skills are just amazing. He's very talented,
out of this fucking world.
And he'll just be like, I don't know any of that timing shit. I'm a 4/4 guy. I'm not very good at that stuff. But he'll just be like, he's really cool about it. He's like, just play, and I'll fuck with it. Just stay in 4/4 timing, and I'm like, I can do that all day. And so we would jam, and he'd be playing some intricate ass shit.
Decorating time as we know
He's
it.
so
it's
talented
crazy.
when you think about his drumming, dude. It makes me, it gives me goosebumps when I see him rolling along, man. But
absolutely,
my point is that every musician at some point or another gets to that point where they're like, okay, I need to stop thinking about what I'm trying to do here and start thinking about what I can learn, right? And just taking one little thing here and there. It's like your scale work. I mean, I've watched you put your posts on your scale work, dude. You have like the most gangster like process with scale. Like you literally will pick a fucking scale and you'll work on that shit for fucking 2 weeks and be like, I'm playing everything in this blah blah, or I'm playing everything in C this, or I'm doing, and you'll literally post it and go, this is what I do. And I mean that is amazing in itself.
Thank you.
Scale work for me is a pain in the ass because I'm so dead set on my certain type of style. It's so hard for me to like learn a new scale or try to like work that out. I just, like I said, my bread and butter is what I do. I call him a triple S, a sensitive singer songwriter.
Yeah, attaboy.
I know you like that one.
I like that one a lot. Yeah, that's good.
So I have my own style I like, and the biggest thing is that I continue to learn and get better, and that's the biggest thing, right? And I never stop. I never stop learning. I never stop growing, and I guess that's the biggest thing to take away from music. It's like when you think you're there, you're not. You're just.
It's endless. Yeah,
correct.
Absolutely. Especially when you're with someone like Mark. Like the two people that come to mind when it's as far as people who stand out and are, I don't know, who just make people better musicians when they're around. Mark, I think, was the first guy who I was genuinely just in awe of, next to like Rob Moody, because with Rob, he was proficient on the instrument that I was currently playing. But with Mark, he was proficient just at music on like a grand scale. So it was different because he made me think of, again, I was 4/4 guy just as well. He's like, well, what about 6/8? I was like, what the fuck is that? and so
Right.
and so now it's like he's taking the very fabric of everything that I know, and he's like, put this lens on and look at it this way, and then add another beat onto that. And then he shows me bands like Meshuggah, where I'm just sitting in my truck, just like,
That band is
what
sick.
is this?
It's so dope. I love
Yeah.
that band so much.
Yeah, and so he shows me a lot of stuff like jazz and how you can really extend and take away and then do this and that, and it goes beyond just the instrument that I'm playing. It's like, wow, I could utilize literal time in any way that I really want, and he really was instrumental and very nurturing, which was good. Like, because he's a great teacher, and he doesn't like. I was just it's like hitting a brick wall with me sometimes, but he was patient, and he was like, and it's funny that you said like, just play and then I'll do it, and then he's like, just keep the downbeat, and then.
Yeah, see,
Like that sort of thing. And then he did that. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, this is the 4, this is the 3. And then I was like, what do you, 4 and numbers? And so he did, that was him. And so then that's something that I took away. And just like you, like when you and I jammed, I wasn't used to jamming with like a voice. I was used to jamming with like other instruments. But it's like, it's like, no, you have a voice here. So it's like when the voice is happening, you got to back off. And then you got to do stuff like sprinkles. You got to like accentuate. It's like now you don't have the entire playing field anymore. You have little bits of it, and you got to make sure that he has his space, you have your space, and you got to find where that balance is. And so that's something that I took away from when I did. I was hired to do like singer-songwriter stuff. I was one of their musicians type thing. So that's your pillar. Mark's pillar is like time, where it's like you don't have to be 4/4 all the time, or you can be 4/4, and the other guys can just be doing stuff.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like those two things, and then Rob was the third pillar. It's like, this is what vibrato is. This is like, if you play a chord, you can also slide into the chord. You can slide in forward, you can slide in backwards, you can play it here or here or here, and then get different sounds. So it's like those three, and I'm taking them into every situation that I have. And yeah, you, Mark, and Rob really are the ones who prepared me for someone like my friend Graham, who is the keyboardist in this band I'm in called Our Dying World, who is he is all about composition, right? So he's pillar number 4, where like you can give him something and he can transpose it to any key and know exactly where to go from there. Like if you give him a mood, you can say like, I want this to be dark, and he'll show 7 different ways, like this kind of dark or this kind of dark. And then
I love that.
Yeah,
that's fucking amazing.
Yeah, because like, and not only that, but like he's studious. Like he knows like the names, and he can like through the language of music tell you like, okay, so if you're here, the next chord in this is here, but if you want this sound, then you can tweak it and make this a minor. And I'm just listening to him like, what? And so he's pillar number 4. So it's like you are like, you don't have to be like full go all the time. Like, give other people their space. Mark is time. Rob is soul, and now this guy is composition. So it's like each one prepared me for the other that came after it, which is really cool. So.
And in that regard, so you're practicing, you're getting yourself to the next level. At what point do you start to form bands and start to go on that track? From you're starting your band to now performing in a fucking stadium in front of thousands of people. Where's that? When did you start the band? When did that actually start to become a full effect?
Well, funny enough, I think the first thing I ever tried to record was because of Mark, because other than like, I think YouTube is kind of starting to become big, and so we had put just a few YouTube videos out, and then but I'd never actually written anything. I just did some shreddy stuff, which is not really, it wasn't a song. It was just like, look what I can do. And then
some licks. That's it.
Yeah, totally. And then Rob and Mark together, we all kind of joined heads, and then I think we wrote one, which was never released, and it was never really proper recorded. But I had just these ideas that a lot of them really were worked out with Mark. So to answer your question directly, it was because of Mark that I put out this little EP called Wickedness Lies in Silence. And it wasn't even, it was just under my name, like my initials. And I had no idea how much of a business sense I needed at the time. I just thought like you put it out there and then what do you do? Like I had no frame of reference for anything. Mark was a lot better at that than I did, but and that was where I cut my teeth on, like, there's a certain way to conduct yourself when you're in a recording studio. I had to teach myself Pro Tools, and I didn't know how to, like, punch in or anything like that. So everything I did, I had to do in one take, or else it was just like,
Oh, Jesus.
yeah. So like it was a lot of trial and error there, and I felt bad because Mark was like very quick to the jump, and a lot of time I think he was kind of waiting for me to just kind of figure it out. And we recorded it with Robert Velasquez Swanson in Sacramento, and so I did the guitar tracks painstakingly at this place called Guitar Heaven Studios in Vacaville. And then we sent the tracks over, which I had to learn how to do that. I had no idea how to do anything. Mark did the drums in like one day, again in like one take. And it was just songs where him and I had conjoined on an idea that I presented him. So it essentially went like this. I was like, here's what I have. What do you think? And then he was like, well, what if we added this? And what if we, like, I did this over what you did? And then there was times where I was like, so this is a bass line, and I don't know what it is under it. I just want you to this is your open playing field. You just kind of do whatever. So when you listen to it, like it's like the bass, which I played as well as all the guitars, and Mark on the drums, like it's having a conversation, but it's really fast paced. It's very like animalistic and kind of primal and primitive sometimes. But that was the introduction to it, and so that started me on like, okay, I have this, and now I want to go and teach music full time because I don't know if I could ever make this a band that I am the head of, and then we go on the road and stuff like that. Like there's a whole process of that I just wasn't really aware of. I liked playing the songs, but I still to this day I've never played those songs live. And so I go, okay, well everyone's telling me to go to Los Angeles and go to this school called Musicians Institute, and if you're gonna, be a teacher, then these are where the big guys went, and so you should probably go there. And so being a small town kid from Dixon, you don't dream that big. You know what I mean? You either go to work or you go to war, and that's it.
Yeah, right.
And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna leave everything behind. I'm gonna, leave and I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna do it. And then I went there and I started going to school. I went and I got a job. After losing basically everything, I lost a vehicle, I lost a bunch of guitars. I went down there with people who at the time weren't equipped with the wherewithal to, I guess just for lack of a better word, like be stand-up people. Okay. Like we were boys. We hadn't learned how to conduct ourselves as men yet. And so I'm going to school, and a few people had kind of asked me to be just in a band, and I just wasn't really interested in anything like that. Granddad passed away, and I was just like, that was the very bottom. And I had a friend named Melissa who said, well, I'm going to take you out to dinner and I want to talk to you about something. And I was like, all right, cool. So we go, and she's like, well, I have a friend who is putting a band back together that's already kind of been established, and they're looking for people. And I know that people have asked you, but this guy in particular, I think you would met with very much. And I originally was just like, I don't want to. It's just like, no, I think that you need to talk to this guy. So she's like, I want to give him your phone number. Is that cool? So that's cool. So a few days later, I get a phone call from, juxtaposed to the other guys who wore like sunglasses inside, were like, we're going to be the biggest band ever. And I'm like, no, you're not. So this guy, on the other hand, was very courteous. He was well-spoken. He was professional. He says, hello, my name's Mario Rubio.
Mario, that's right.
Yeah,
I just watched the interview with him just the other day, man.
Yeah. And he says,
he's a very good guy.
Very good guy. One of the best. And he's actually another pillar, which I'll get to in a second. But he was well-spoken. He was polite. And he said, first off, I just want to give acknowledgement to what you're going through. Terribly sorry, and my dearest condolences. First off, how are you? And I was like, this is not what I expected, but I'm good, And he's like, that's good. So I'm sure Melissa already told you we're writing some songs right now. We have some demos. If you have the time before you leave, because I, was going to go and essentially bury my granddad. Before you leave for, a few days or however long you're gone, if you want to film yourself playing over, this section of the song, we would really appreciate it. And so the video every year will circulate like on my Facebook, and you can tell like I'm not happy at all. I'm just like kind of just like I'm not giving this any thought. It's just here's the thing, whatever, cool. And so I send it to him, and he goes, "Okay, cool, thank you, and have a as good a trip as you can, obviously. But like
Right.
when you get back, we'll circle around and talk." I get back, and he goes, "Okay, so I would love to meet if that's okay." And I go, "Yeah, sure." And so he walks in, and I'm just completely denimed out. And he walks in, and he's got like his hair slicked back. He's got a leather jacket, like boots on and stuff like that. I'm like, wow, this guy's well dressed. Like, this guy's really cool. And he's like, let's go for a drive. So we go for a drive, and I think he had like a Dodge Challenger at the time. And we go to this nightclub, and we meet this gentleman named Henry Derrick. And he says, "Hi, this is Henry Derrick. He's going to be our singer for the group that we're doing." And we all talk, and then I meet this gentleman named Dave Corsili, who's going to be the bassist. And so now that I've kind of met everybody, Mario takes me for a drive, and he says, "Okay, so the plan essentially is this. So we have label interest, and this is a resurgence, a rebuild of a band that's already kind of been established since 2011. We have a show booked with Death Angel at the Whiskey Go Go." And I go, "Stop."
Whiskey? What?
and like with the funny enough with that other band,
Yeah.
we did play the Whiskey to like 7 people, and so
Fuck it, dude.
right, yeah,
Let's go.
And so I was like, "What?"
700? I don't give a fuck. Let's
Exactly.
roll.
And so, but this is Death Angel, and I was like, "Oh shit." Okay. And so the funny thing is it's kind of a secret, right? So I can't post about it. Not that I have anyone following me anyway. So and so he's like, you can't post about it because it's kind of a surprise. So we walk up, and I think the show sold out English.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so I have played in a couple backyards and to 7 people at the Whiskey, and I am shaking. I'm like, wow. And Mario just kind of walks out and he's like, "Okay, cool. So yeah, we got a good crowd." I'm like, "What the dude?" This is sold out, bro. Fuck. And so at this point, I'm kind of a temp, and I'm just like still on the fence of like, I don't know if I really want to do that. We play the show after practicing for like 4 times, and it goes off, and I walk off. And he's like, "So what'd you think?" I was like, "Can I stay?" He's like, "I thought you might want to." And so, and
That's cool, man.
and so from there, I actually, funny enough, the lease runs out. The people that I moved there with moved back home, and I stayed. And I was like, okay, well, I'm in this band now, so I'm part of a conglomerate thing. I have to be here. The lease runs out, and I actually become homeless. And so,
Jesus.
yeah, and like by homeless, I mean like I'm not like living on someone's couch. I mean like I'm sleeping under the pier in Santa Monica and like under park benches and stuff like that, which is totally fine because like that was actually a very humbling experience. And there's a saying like when you have nothing to lose.
Right.
Right? I'm so grateful for that experience, for what it taught me inherently going forward. But that being said, so then we get signed to a label. Now we're recording at Jake Pitts of Black Veil Bride's house, who, by the way, like is
What the fuck?
yeah. By the way, dude, he is the most wholesome, polite, genuine human being I've ever met in my life.
Bell Brides,
Yeah,
man. That's
Jake
sick as
Pitts.
fuck.
Jake Pitts is like just the nicest. Like when you walk into his house, like, "May I get you anything?" Like, would you like to sit down? Like he's just like very old school, like polite guy. Very cool. And so up to this point, I've like hastily recorded guitars at that studio in Vacaville. And so now it's like we're working with like a producer who is, kind of, he knows his way around. So I'm just like, okay. And I'm living at this point either in a concrete stairwell at, funny enough, another Walmart that I worked at, or I got a lockout, which was, it was Martin Rehearsal Studios in North Hollywood, and I used to take 2 buses to work and 2 buses back, but it was a tiny room with no windows, and I just had like a body pillow for a mattress, and so I would write the leads to whatever was sent to me, in that room, and then we would go to Jake's house, and then I would record it, and then all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, I've kind of run out of places to stay here, so I'm going to go back home for a little bit. I go back to SAC for a year, which is funny enough where you came.
Right.
So you came back into the fold there, and then I get a phone call like, hey, we're going on tour. You need to come back. And I was like, I don't want to come back, and I don't want to go back to Los Angeles. And they're like, well, you have to. So this is kind of a thing. And so I'm like, fuck. Well, I guess if you're signed to a label and stuff like that, this is kind of just what you have to do.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. So it's like, okay. I leave I don't know where I was, like Macy's or some shit in the back doing, doesn't matter. But so I go there, and the guy's like, our drummer has a job in a moving company. And so he can get you into this moving company, and that way when you land here, you'll have a job. And I stayed at Dave Corsili's house on his couch, funny enough, for like a year.
Wow.
And, yeah. So and so the moment I land, we go to Oregon, Washington, Canada, and then back to play a hometown show in SAC with a Havoc, Warbringer, and Ex Mortis, who previously I've listened to for like years. And so now, like, you're kind of getting your feet wet, and I'm trying to learn how to not fanboy over people who, funny enough, are now my friends. But it went beyond just music then, because now it's like, okay, now you have to conduct yourself as if you're in a position of employment. Like, you have to conduct yourself as if you're running a business, so to speak. And so everything that you do will reflect on the grand collective of what you're involved in, right? Mm-hmm. So, that's how you kind of learn, like, you probably shouldn't do that. You probably shouldn't say that, and then things like that. And so, and it even goes to, like, little things, like when you load into a green room, don't have your shit just, like, in the middle of the room. Like, pick a corner and then stack it high. So that way, you're giving credence to everyone else. And then I just kind of like learning music in general. Like, I just failed until eventually I got it right. And then
you were telling me you were. I remember I reached out to you a couple times. I'd call you. I'm a caller. I don't text people.
It's all good.
And I would reach out and be like, "Hey, how'd it go?" And you were like, "Fuck." The whole first, like you said, like the first set I went out and played with them. Like there were so many things that went wrong, or my guitar was all fucked up. The tuning wouldn't stay where it was, or you felt like it wasn't that great. And then you're like, Mario was just like, he reassured you. It's like, dude, you're fine.
He did
he
very much
kind of
so.
stepped in there and helped you. And I was like, that's what I always wanted in a band. I've always wanted that.
I'd love to hear about some of your band experiences too. Like what was some of the most integral things you learned from being in bands?
Well, first and foremost, when I first joined my band at 21, I did a thing in high school that was for a minute, and we never really didn't have a band name, but that was my first experience working with other people, and I found out very quickly that there has to be a leader. Mm-hmm. There has to be someone leading the way.
Sure.
So whether that's yourself, the vocalist, the bassist, the drummer, it doesn't matter. You have to have a person who is like the driving force of the band.
How did you get everyone into a room? Like, did you put out flyers, or did you?
No. So what we did is, it was high school, so we just knew a bunch of people out there. We met up. We just said, hey, I know a guy. We met up at my place, and we practiced. And at that point, I was already kind of like, okay, it was just like, hey, I play rhythm and I sing. And I at that point, I already had a singer. So Spencer Salyer was a singer of our band, and he had already sang for a while before that. I had been writing. What we would do is I'd write the progressions and all the music wise, and he'd do the lyrics. So it was really cool because it was easy for me because I can write progressions. I can just write material all day.
Oh yeah, you're very gifted in that for sure.
Yeah, the words part for me comes a little bit later because I spend a little time on it more than most. And then he had this ability just to fucking pull out a pen and paper and just be like, okay, I'm just gonna write a song right now. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
That's awesome.
He was really good at that. Whereas me, I have to work through I write the music first, and then the lyrics go with it.
I was going to ask. So like, it's music first, then lyrics.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes,
That's cool.
I kind of do it ass backwards in a way.
That's cool though. I admire that. That's
a lot of my friends, they're they ask, how do you do this? And I go, well, this is a version that works best for me. I mean, it has to be a specific set of circumstances, like TV on mute, a couple beers in, listening or not listening to music, like something else going on in a dark ass room. It's like when I wrote when I was a kid, like when I was younger, that's how I wrote. That's how I always wrote songs, was in that kind of setting. So like I'll try to come out here during the day and just like write. I'm like, this isn't working, and then I'll wait until nighttime. I'll have a couple drinks. I'll have the TV on mute, and I'll just be like, oh, it's just starts pouring out of me. I'm like, okay, because that's just what I'm used to. It's just like Maynard from fucking Tool. He gets in a pickup truck and drives the country roads, and that's how he writes his music.
Really?
Like,
Does he do that?
Fuck yeah, he does. He just gets in his fucking truck. I didn't know that.
That's awesome.
Drives, and my friend was explaining that. He's like, yeah, dude, he just goes out and he just writes. He'll just listen to. I mean, my God, trying to write music to that would be incredibly difficult just for me to think about. But
sure,
every person has their own style. Every person has their own way of doing it. And I guess my version was my first step. So when I get involved with this group, all high schoolers. Spencer was the leader, and I was cool with that because I was like, all right, cool, just tell me what you need, right? And we all linked up, and there was some like expectations, and there was some like we had to lay down, like when we started we'd start fucking off or start getting distracted and start talking, he'd be like, stop, we need to get this down, let's get this down. And I remember I wrote this progression for the group, and we were playing it, and I remember there was this part where we were practicing in the living room, and my mom's office was across the house, kind of in the middle or whatever. And we were playing this one progression, and it was like, okay, we had the lyrics down, we had a chorus, we had things together. It was sounding really good. And I remember us like playing it. I didn't think it was that good. And my mom kind of got up after practice. They all left. She came over. She's like, dude, you guys sound really good. Like, it was in time. You guys had a really cool verse, and your chorus was seamless. It was like. And at the time we were like, this is garbage. Like, we just didn't know, what we were doing.
You're very hard on yourself.
Yeah, all the time. All the time. And it was really cool to be able to work with first of all, we were a bunch of young kids trying to figure that out. It was already kind of a task in itself. And then later on, we got a drummer, and he came in, and he was very talented. He was in band, so everybody knew him. He was like I call him the pretty boy because he was the pretty boy. If you pull up his yearbook photo right now from when he graduated, he's a pretty boy.
Love it.
Kyle, good guy. I'm sure he's doing well. Wish him the best. But he comes in and he drums out for us. It was great. He filled the slot. And I remember we tried to play some shows and set him up, but a lot of times things fell out. Drummer couldn't make it, or the guitarist wouldn't be able to go because he's got practice for something else. It never worked out. So at that point, I moved on from that. And I think I was 21 before I joined another band called All Is Fair. And when I was with this band, I came in as a young buck. These guys are all, twice my age.
Seasoned.
Yeah, they've been around. Funny, the bassist in the band was Ray.
Oh,
and
cool.
Yeah, I used to call him the Razor's Edge. He used to play in hair metal.
I love
bands.
the distortion in your voice.
Razor's Edge.
I love it, dude.
Yeah.
That's good.
So he played in a hair metal band. He played on massive stages. He opened up. He's like, oh, we almost played fucking this. And I was like, no fucking way, man. He comes from a background of hair metal. He likes that style. And you can hear it in his playing style.
Fun music.
It's fun to play. And then he also has a little funky side to him, too, as well. But,
that's cool.
It was Ray, Jeff, the drummer, and then Jake was the guitarist at the time. And then it was just those three. They just jammed. It was a jam session for them. And I remember I was dating a girl at the time, and they mentioned, hey, Derek, do you want to come over here and jam and play? I was like, sure, I'll show up. And I showed up, and I had talked to him for a little bit. They just jammed. They actually were going to call themselves the Jake Jeffrays. That was their joke name for their band.
The Jake Jeffrays?
The Jake Jeffrays, because it's Jake Jeffrays. Yeah. So I was like, oh, God, you guys are ridiculous. Anyways, it was good. So I show up, and they're going, hey, do you have any music? Do you have any music that you wrote or whatever? Because they were talking. And I'm like, yeah, I got a song. And they're like, okay, well, what do you have? So roll my amp over, and just, set it. He's got a whole setup in the garage, and I played the song, and I remember the song was called All Along. It's one of my bigger songs that I wrote that worked really well, and it was basically like a fuck you song, because at the time I was my girlfriend broke up with me when I was 21, 22, and it fucked me up. And I got rip roaring drunk for 2 or 3 weeks, and I wrote it, and it was just like a fuck you, whatever, moving on, bitch. It was just, that's how it was. I was just pissed off and drunk. And it started bluesy, and then it went to country, and then now it is what it is. And I remember I showed up, And I had erased. We actually got back together, and I had erased all the lyrics. I got rid of everything. I erased the lyrics. I erased the song. It was completely gone. I just got rid of it.
On purpose, or
I did it on purpose because we got back together, and I didn't want to keep it because it was not a good song to have, for one, and two, I probably would, if we would have stayed together, I never would have performed it because it just was like a FU song. It was literally about the situation and how bullshit it was. And I show up and they go, "What do you have?" And I go, "Hey, I have this." And we started to play, and it was like I had not missed a beat. I knew the entire song, front to back. And I just played it out. It's a simple progression. It's just D. I think it was like the 3 chords I use are D, F, G. Those are the 3 chords I use for the whole song. It's
3
really
chords and the truth.
That's it. And I remember playing that and people going like, "Dude, that shit is fucking great. It's a great song." And I'll go, "Thanks." And there's a lot of energy in it. It's because it was a part of me at the time what I was going through. And they instantly were like, "Dude, you want to be a part of this?" And I was like, can we roll? He's like, "Yeah, let's do it." So the moment we got together, all of a sudden it was like the friend group that they hung out with. Remember, they're all older. I'm the young buck. I'm 21. They're in their 40s and late 30s, and they're doing their thing. Their whole group was like, "Oh shit, things are happening." And I remember we played our first show at fucking Darla's, and we opened for karaoke.
Darla's, where's that?
Right over here on the it's overall. It's like when you're getting on the exit.
We're in Vacaville, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. It's on the Peabody exit right there before you get on the freeway. But
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
So they get this. Karaoke there is huge. It's like a big thing.
Love it.
We opened for karaoke. That's how big karaoke is there. Like they're like, "Hey, you can come play, but karaoke's the main event." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." Like we're like, "Fuck it, we'll take it."
There you go. Yeah.
Big, like saying is a musician will pile $2,000 worth of equipment into a $1,000 car, drive 500 miles to make $200. That's what musicians do, right?
Oh yeah.
So we play the show. I remember we practiced. I remember that was my biggest thing. I was like, "Guys, we have to get this practice down. It's got to be fluid. It's got to be this." And I remember I was doing.
You're an important member to have.
I was important. Well, here's the thing. I was the one who was doing all the writing at the time, and it's no knock to them to say, but it was. At the time, I was okay with it because I was eager. I was hungry. I wanted to go.
Oh, yeah.
So I did all the writing, and I put the progressions together, and I would present it to the band, and then they'd all put their spin on it, and we'd be like, "All right, this is the song." And we practiced that. We did a lot of covers, too, at the same time because that was something we needed for fillers. Mm-hmm. And we show up to do this gig, and we play for. There's another band that was there to watch us called Glass House, and they were like, "Hey, this is kind of like this is basically our interview."
I've heard of that name. Yeah.
Yeah, Glass House. They, Vinny, the lead singer of that band. It's a long time ago, but shout out to Vinny. I love you, man. But my thing was, they want to see how we perform, so they could say, "Hey, you want to be our opener for when we go and play other places?" Mm-hmm. And they're top 40. They just play covers. They had some originals, but predominantly they just played covers. And we're implementing our originals into our cover music in our playlist so that people could kind of hear it. And so we go there, we play the show, which was really fun, and we have a blast. I play my ballad. We play all of our stuff. And I remember after the show was over, and this is probably, I'd say about 3 months in from me being in the band, we're already playing a show. And after the show's over, Vinny's like, "Hey man, you guys sounded great. I love that new song. That it's great. It's smooth, but it's so beautiful and And I go, "Thanks, man. I appreciate you. Thanks for coming out." I even had an associate that I worked with at the time come out. Vincent. He came out and just sat there and watched. He's an overnight associate with me. And Gil, who was the place we practiced at, we practiced in like a small mini house, like a Kwanzaa hut or what do you want to call it. And he let us use it for practicing. And he, after the show, he kind of pulled me aside and he's like, "Hey, listen, man, like I want to talk to you a minute, and I want to tell you something, and I don't want you to tell anybody of the other guys this, okay?" He's like, "You're the heart and soul of this band, and since you've been a part of it, things are happening, and it's awesome. So keep doing what you're doing, And that was a big thing because Gil was a hard ass. He was a hardworking man. He's got his own business. He does a lot. He does HVAC. He's good man. He works a lot. He does hard work for what he has. He has his own farm, his own land. It's a good guy. For him to say that was like a pivotal moment to be like, okay, I'm going down the right track. I have to be. If he's pulling me aside saying that shit, because he's a hard ass and he doesn't give a fuck, he'll tell me how it is. He's done it before. He's had to put me in check because I said some dumbass shit as a kid. Remember, I'm 21, 22.
Sure.
I'm still stupid.
That's a lion giving you a blessing
Right.
in real
So
time.
he
Yeah.
gave me that, and I was like, okay, cool. That was, and it wasn't about ego. I didn't take it to my head like I'm the shit. I took it as like, okay, I'm doing all the right things. I just need to stay on the right path.
Love it.
So at that point, we played the show, and then everything started pouring in. Downtown Vacaville, Davis, a couple other shows. We almost played Mount Tamalpais, where they have that old school stone stadium where you can go in there and it's like stone seating. It's like old school.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, we got a invite to do that, and so I remember that one because we got invited to do it, and then 2 weeks before the event they had fire and it got canceled. So we had spent. I still have the recordings of us practicing for it. Like we would practice. I'd literally go, "All right, guys, this is like we're playing the show now." Okay. We'd all turn away from each other like we're facing an audience, and I'd go through the exact same thing I would do. And there, like, I remember one guy was like, "What do you?" I'm like, "Yeah, we have to get to the point where we because when we jam looking at one another, we have a certain vibe. We need to get used to not doing that and making it about the audience, because right now we're making it about us. This is our personal time in the session. Let's have fun with them because that's where we're gonna get the love, right? That's where we're gonna entertain because we're entertainers, right? That's what we are.
Yeah, definitely.
And then at the same time, we're doing what we love. So I was like, let's try to incorporate them and have some fun with it. And that's how we would practice. So I would fucking practice twice a week for 4 to 6 hours. We just go through it, right? That got canceled, bummed me out. Then we played downtown Davis, did the Wonder Bar, and get this, we go to play. It's fucking Game 6 of the fucking NBA playoff, like NBA Finals.
Who was playing that year?
It was. I think LeBron was in it he was with the Cavaliers, and then it was something else. I just remember getting there because we were opening up for a band called Chronic Vitality. And
That's a great name. Chronic Vitality.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I remember the lead singer. The lead singer was a good guy. He was our neighbor when I lived in Davis. He lived across the street, so I would go over there and hang out with them when they were jamming. Mm-hmm. But I remember showing up, and I was like, hey man, I was talking to him backstage. I was like, hey, is there it's unfortunate that we have to this event's going on, and he's like, oh, it's all good, bro. You guys can have some of our set. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you guys can have like 30 minutes of our set. We're playing for fucking from like 11 to 1 a.m. Or 10 to 1 a.m. Just go ahead, have 30 more minutes. They're like, we don't give a fuck. And I'm like, oh, that's nice of you. So at the time, my drummer, God bless his soul, Jeff, he had an electric Roland kit. The full size TD kit, whatever the fuck it's called.
Yeah.
Full electric kit. Like the $5,000 one, right?
Oh, yeah.
It took him the longest to get set up. So how he planned it was like, hey, the moment they're done, you get your ass up there and start setting it up.
Yeah.
And he had a specific way he set it up, right? Because it's his set, and I get it. But that was the hardest part. So like me, Kevin, and at the time I think Jake was there. Me, Jake, Ray are like boom, 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 plug and play. Guys like level. I'm like play. He's like, all right, you're good. And I'm like, okay. And like it sounds like shit because I can't hear anything. There's no monitors. It's just like a really small stage.
Right.
And Jeff's just like the last one. And we're just like, let's go. Like we got this shit cut. And I remember
people are watching. Yeah,
we're on stage, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And so anyways, so we play the show. And it was okay. We got a little bit of a crowd response. It wasn't too good. Obviously, I'm sure it had a lot to do with just the sound and what was going on. But we went up there and played original music. And I remember this moment after the show was over, like the guys from Chronic Vitality were like, fucking that shit was sick. You guys went up there and played original music. It was good. It wasn't like you guys, went up there and just bombed, like you had fun and we could see the energy and you guys were involved. And I was like, man, that's fucking dope. Thanks for the vote of confidence. And that night, that guy was their bassist played a stand-up bass, a stand-up fretless bass. And I was like, holy shit! Like he played no frets.
What a guy! That's awesome.
No frets, stand-up electric. I was like, what the fuck? That's the coolest shit ever. But yeah, we played that show. That was a lot of fun. Got to experience what it's like to be on a timeline because before that we had a lot of luxuries. Like it was like, yeah, it's fun. You can do this. Because our first big show was when we opened up for Glass House downtown Vacaville when the Blondies was still there. Mm-hmm. And Jason used to be the one who ran Blondies. And he calls me up and he goes, hey man, I heard you guys were going to come open. We never had to open it before. We just do top 40, you just show up and play. But I want you to come down so I can show you how to do the Facebook post and how to tag everybody and get as many people here as possible. I went down there, gave me a couple shots, hung out and talked for a bit. And he's like, hey, we'll see you out here. It'll be fun. I'm like, all right, cool. So we came back. Dude, that place had 150 people in it. It was
Hell
packed
yeah, dude.
out. All my friends showed up. All their friends showed up. All the friends of the band showed up. It was a fuck. And Glass House was playing after us, and we only had like a 30-minute set. You know, it's not that long at all. Less than that probably. And we go up to go play, and I remember 5 minutes before the show, one of the guys, friends of a friend of my drummer at the time, tried to snake me before the show. He tried to like steal me away. He was like, "Hey, you listen, I got a band going on, and I want you to be a part of it. You know, I'm a much better bassist than your guy is, and we could do a lot of good things. You know, this band's kind of just like not getting you where you want to be." And
Confidence.
right. Well, at the same time, I was kind of like, well, I was loyal, dude. I'm a loyal. I was like, fuck you. I don't know.
You are very much so.
I'm like, I'm fucking leaving my band. You're tripping. Even if my band wasn't the best, I'd be like, fuck you. I'm not leaving.
Yeah. Definitely.
And anyways, so I literally 5 minutes before I got on stage, she's asking me that. So I'm like, what the? So anyways, I go up there, we get set up, we start rocking. And this was my first experience. Like, I turned 22 yesterday, so I was a young buck. I just turned 22. It was on April 18th. And I was like, hey guys, listen, I remember they got me a shot, and I was like, hey man, what a hell of a way to celebrate a birthday, you know, here's a cheers, and everybody cheers. It was a great experience. And then we got to play. And at the very end, we played the song All Along. It was our closing song because it was our most popular and it was our strongest, and people really liked it. It had a really big connection. And I remember playing it, and I remember going, hey, we're going to extend it and get the crowd involved. So I did some crowd work, and I was just like, hey, you know, you guys, I appreciate you guys, blah, 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 but I'm going to need your help for this last part. You know, when I say this, you say it back to me, okay? You know, I need you guys to get involved. Let's go. And I remember saying it, and they were so loud. It was so loud I couldn't hear the music anymore because the crowd was that loud. Like, it was like, you know, awesome. I'm like, she loves me, and then shit, and I was just like, boom, and I'm like, holy shit. Like, it was like, this is real. Like, this is crazy, you know? People were singing the lyrics, and I was like, oh my God, they're singing my song. Like, that's crazy, right? Something I wrote, people were singing. And
human connection, man.
Right.
It's nothing
right.
like it.
And so after the show, I also had another moment where my bassist approached me, and he goes, Derek, so actually, I wasn't after the show. It was the day after we met up for practice. He goes, dude, you want to hear something that's even crazier about that? I'm like, wait. He's like, so I had this friend of ours walk up to me at the end of the show when we're getting our stuff packed up, and ask, hey, so I was looking for that song you play at the end. Who sings that? Because I've been trying to find it online, and I just want to. I love it, and I want to. And Ray looks at her, and she's like, Derek wrote that. That's not a cover. That he wrote that. She's like, really? He's like, yeah. That's not anybody else's song. It's his song. And it was like that moment where you're like, okay, that was kind of cool. That's a cool moment. And he's like, hey man, that's. And Ray was like, fuck yeah. And he had this premise of like, hey, if they're tapping their feet, that's a win for me. Like, if they're going with the tempo, that's a win. That means they're engaged. You know what I mean? They're listening. So it was a really cool experience being with that group. You know, and it unfortunately didn't work out in the long run. Because, like I said, I wanted to take the next step. I wanted to be more involved and do an EP and put together an album and really put something out there so we could start, branching out. And it never really happened because I guess the guys I was with at the time, they just weren't, they're older. They have lives going on, the kids, family. Mm-hmm. So it was much harder for them to be that dedicated to that. So I ended up just kind of steering away from it and just going focusing on my career. But man, I tell you what, dude. I still to this day I'm like, this shit was so cool, man. I still think about like, oh man, there's no better feeling than getting up on stage and having the jitters for the first song, or getting over those, like, you're just like, you got that anxiety, but it's like, it's good. It's like a good fun anxiety. You're like, yeah. Like, you're just like, you walk out there and the crowd is going wild. And you feel alive and in the moment. And there's parts in the set where you're like, is this really happening? I'm sure you understand what I mean by that. Like, you're playing something and it sounds, everything's going well, and you're just like, this is really fucking happening, and I'm doing this right now. Yeah. And you have to go, whoa, go back into the song, like go back into the practice, go back into
find the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, because your feet don't touch the ground until you walk back off. You know what I mean? Like, it's nuts. Like,
I mean, I can't even imagine your level is completely a whole different. I mean, shit, dude, what you guys are doing, what your guys shows wise, man, fuck, I can only imagine. I mean, when I saw 100 people in front of me, I was like blown away. I went, holy shit, how the fuck, this is really happening right now? And then you're telling me you walk out and your first gig is you're fucking playing in front of, I mean, this is a small venue, right? This is like would be considered to be a small venue, and you're talking like 1,000 people, or
It's funny. That's
like, look at this
venue
shit.
called the Glass House,
That
the previous
shit
one,
is
and then
incredible.
that is that was one of those moments for sure where
That is incredible.
oh yeah, that's with the Caballero Brothers. We're playing with them in a few days. I actually have to get on a plane and on Monday night after
No
work,
shit.
and then go there. Yeah, that's kind of the thing I do now. I go and oh yeah, it was Hobby's birthday just a little bit ago. But yeah, that's kind of the thing that happens now. I live here, but then I go and I get on a plane and then just go back and forth for both.
That's got to be a crazy life, though.
It is. It is. It's very quiet sometimes and not necessarily sustainable for, girlfriends or anything like that. But
come on, bro, look at that shit, bro. That's fucking dope, man.
And it's funny, man. Like Mario was really. He's the guy, man. And with the way that it is now, like this is. It's the best, most solid lineup that I've ever been in. So I'll go ahead and just kind of introduce everyone. That guy doesn't matter, but this guy's Tom. This guy's my he's basically my absolute.
So the guy standing next to you on the right hand side, right? Okay.
Yep. So the gentleman with glasses, that's my friend Tom Tierney, and that guy's like blood to me, man. And he's funny enough. Speaking of pillars, he's another pillar because he's actually proficient at multiple instruments. He's as good as a guitar player as anyone, and him and Mario share the same gift, where they can't necessarily tell you the names or the logistics behind the progressions that they're doing.
Sure,
but they have an ear. And for Mario and Tom, I mean, that's not, yeah.
Man.
Oh, yeah. That's just not something that, which, funny enough, same with you, like with your progressions and stuff like that. There's probably things that, we couldn't sit down and write on paper, like, this is the Lydian mode. And but it's like, what it is, and that's enough. And so then you have Edwin, who's also in a band called Nyctophile, with Javi, funny enough. And he's there with our friend Jillian. But, Edwin is just so capable and really inspirational to me because he's a father as well, and that's something that I genuinely want in my life, just to be, dedicated to one woman and be a dad. And he's just so like the sounds that a human being can make is just staggering, and he can make all of those sounds and then some. Like it's bewildering to watch. And then I'll look because I'll hear him in my monitor sometimes. Like there's no way that's a jet engine taking off. There's no way that human being made that sound. And then you have Javi, who is just the absolute salt of the earth guy, and he holds it down, man. Him and Tom are like just an absolute staggering fucking rhythm section. And then with Mario, just the most devastating right hand in the fucking biz, dude. That guy is just stamina as a human being incarnate. And it's funny because we all take like so many different influences from so many things. Like I can totally, Mario is probably sitting in his gal's house right now listening to like Tears for Fears. You know what I mean? Like, but the stuff that he comes up with, man, is just, it's so great. And it's challenging for me because a lot of what I've learned was kind of stock, and it was very much like, okay, you are going to play over the Aeolian or the Hungarian stuff like that, and then Mario just comes out of left field with this progression that I cannot name at all, and I'm like, oh, we got something here. I gotta completely throw everything that I've learned out the window. And I have to look at this really for like what it is. And I'm just like, an added sixth chord? What the fuck is that? And so, because like I try to look at it methodically. And with Mario, the funny thing about him is that I can't do that. I can't think methodically anymore because I have to also train my ear to match his ear and just go, okay, just think of like one solid like line, like one note, not like like not like a bunch of notes, but like start with the most primitive basic thing and then build from there if it needs to be. And the record that we released recently, it had a gentleman named Joey Dallo on it on the mic, and that was a very, very good experience for me because with the first one that we put out called Safe Inside, where we recorded with Jake Pitts, I just wanted to just be the fastest guy around. Like I was at the end of that stage where I was like, I just metal, like that whole thing, with the mix of like, get some kind of Stevie Ray, Buddy Guy stuff in there too. Mm-hmm. But with that one, I didn't listen to metal at all. I think being away from home so much made me miss it. And it made me go from like, I want the Jackson King V with the pointy and stuff like that, and then it's like, no, I'm good with the Strat. Let's
That's what I was gonna say. I love that. I love that side of you. That's how I know it's you up there, man. Like,
thank you, man.
When I see, like, you have this envision of whenever you see metal bands, it's fucking Schecters and fucking, you got the Diamondback Daryl shit. You got you got Explorer guitars. You got like all, and then I see your Strat, and I'm like, that's fucking Ray right there. He's playing a Strat. I don't give a shit how heavy metal they're playing. He's playing a fucking. It's a guitar, man. It's your thing, man. I get it. And
thank you.
I still to this day have my Sector Diamond series. It had black strings on it. It was like my metal guitars, matte black. It's a cool guitar. I love it. Good, and it was a good series of guitars that came out. And
Schecter's great, man, for sure.
And I just, whenever I see your videos and I see your live performances, you still got that fucking Strat out there, man.
Thank you, man.
It's your calling card, so to speak. It's like, hey, man, like, shouldn't you have a? Nope, this is how I play my music, bro. Just deal with it. Like,
yeah, man. And it's funny too. Like, I remember we played with this band called Wolves at the Throne Room, and
great name, Jesus.
Great name, great band too, great people. And I think one of their guys came out to me, and this guy's wearing like face paint and stuff like that. And so he comes up and he's like, "Hey, man, my dad's a big Stevie Ray Vaughan fan." And I was looking at him, I was like, "That's awesome." So like, it's funny because with metalheads, a lot of them are not what they seem to be. Like, they are big fans of so many other different types of music and stuff like that. But and that's. Funny enough about the record, Illusion of Control, the second one is what it's called. I completely took it from a different perspective, and I think it worked so well that I think that's just what's going to happen from now on. Like, I think when I'm writing for an Exile record specifically, I think I'm just not going to listen to metal at all, and I'm going to take Mario's chords and then treat them just as they are, and then just kind of go from there. Obviously, like my ego will always take a backseat because my main objective is to serve the grand collective, right? Like, the song is king, the audience is king, and so whatever I do will be in service to that. And there definitely came a time when, I mean, with the shows that we were told we were going to play, and then you did it, and you're like, wow, now you have this in your repertoire, and then you're told you're going to London, and it's like, now you're doing this, but at the same time, it comes at the cost of relationships. You miss weddings, you miss this, you miss that, and so there was a very clear crossroads for me at multiple points where it's like, okay, this isn't a hobby anymore. This is your life. I started when I was 13. I'm 30 now. And I'm about to be 31, and so it's like, that's 18 years of your life,
right?
And I kind of recently actually had to kind of make a delineation of like, okay, you want to be a dad, you want to have a family, you want to be dedicated to, one woman, have the American dream, so to speak, but then there's also this, and so, do you continue on this path and then find someone along the way and
right,
maybe not find them at all, but then at the end of it all, like, if I wake up one day next to a gate, and the great beyond, it's like I can look back and say, you know what, I was in service to people who work long hours at jobs that they probably don't like, to go and give their time and their money and their energy, which they will never get back, to us to go and feel better and see a metal show. And if at the end of it all, I made the decision of like, this is what the purpose is. And Exile, Our Dying World, Yigikian, like, these are the people that I choose to do that with. And I trust all three of those bands and everyone in those bands just with my absolute life. And so there was a bit of sadness in there because this is kind of what the line is that I've heard from so many like teachers and people of like, oh yeah, like, we're doing this, but the kids came along and stuff like that. And then like, I wanted to do other things, and there's other things I want to do, but at the same time, like, this is, granted, it was never supposed to happen. And if it ended right now, which, I mean, COVID, I never foresee it. No one foresaw that, right? So
No one saw that shit.
yeah.
Coming.
So like, it kind of put a monkey wrench in the whole thing. Like, wow, all this could end. It's like, if the stars aligned, it really could just end right now. And if it did, like, could you hang your hat and be like, yeah, I did all right? And after thinking about it, I mean, being that this was never necessarily like the dream of mine, I just wanted to be a teacher. I mean, anything further than this is just gravy on top.
Sure.
Like, it's every day and every show is an absolute gift. But that being said, the opportunity is here, and Mario and I say this to all the time. It's you and me until the fucking wheels fall off, and that's really it. And I have forgone, love. I've forgone, things like that, and in the pursuit of this. And while it hurts in the moment, it's all worth it, because what did I think it was Helen Keller who said, all success is fidelity to a purpose that you deem worthy. And I define worthiness as like, you see the genuine look of joy on people's faces, and you are able to step off the barricade and go and give them a hug and let them know, like, you and I are not really so far apart. I may be in this goofy outfit with a strat and whatnot, but at the same time, when Warbringer comes on, I'm going to be in the fucking pit with you. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I'm like, when Machine Head or, Dimmu Borgir comes on, like, I'm going to be there right next to you. You know what I mean? Like, we're all in the same family. And, it's weird to kind of live in Los Angeles for 9 years and then come back to Dixon and go to like Bud's Pub and Grill, and then just kind of be like, wow, a decade flew by, and then you have all this experience, and but at the same time, like, I still have good people in my life like you who have lasted throughout. And what was that saying? Everyone who came with you can't go with you, type thing.
Right.
And
well, listen, man, you're always a phone call away.
As are you, man.
And
Thank you
like
so
I
much.
said, yeah, I mean, I have been following your musical career for a long time. I've been your friend for a long time. And I always look forward for you in the future. The sky is the limit, man. And you're only going to do great things, man. You're already doing amazing things. You're having a blast. You're living that rock star lifestyle, top to bottom, from being on stage in front of 1,000 people to living on a bench.
Yeah,
you're doing everything, man. And and I applaud that.
Thank you.
For the longest time, I've always wanted to have the opportunity to go do some of the things you're doing. There was a time where I almost went on tour with Mark, and just to be his drum tech, or just to be his roadie, because he was like, Derek, he's like, would you be down to roadie? I'm like, fucking, I would drive fucking 1,000 miles with you, bro. I'd just go with you, and we could live off top ramen for 2 weeks. I don't give a fuck. But, obviously with where I'm at with my career and what I'm doing, it's a little more difficult. But at the same time, that I still have that, like, hunger. I went and roadied for him when he opened for Comedy Christ in Frisco,
Yeah.
I showed up and I just was
That
like,
was a good show.
Yeah, it was a good show.
That was fun.
I had a great time. And, long story short, this life we have we only have one life to live, And how we choose to live it is up to us. And if we want to pursue... If you have ambitions to pursue a career and move on, and that's fine. All power to you, But if there's something in life that you want, that you absolutely can't stand to live without, or it's something that is driving you, that's just like, man, I love this. Do it. Don't hold back.
I agree. Words to live by, ladies and gentlemen.
I mean, that being said, yeah, Ray, it's such a pleasure to have you, dude.
It's such a pleasure to be here, man.
I genuinely appreciate you coming down here and sitting down and hearing your story. Me.
Thank you, man.
I've never really had an opportunity to talk to you about that. I know we've always been just like hang out, business, and then off to the races you go for your next tour. But it's a pleasure to be able to sit down and talk to you.
It's an honor to be here.
I'm sure a lot of people out there are going to really would love to hear your story, man. And a big shout out to you and your band, what you guys are doing. You guys are doing fantastic stuff, man.
Thank you, buddy.
I look forward to hearing your guys' albums. I look forward to hearing you guys' new. I will absolutely start planning out when I can go to one of your shows. I've been to a couple of your shows already in Sacramento. It was a smaller one, but I definitely want to make it out to some of these big events, man. I would love to see you guys on stage.
We would love it, man.
Our
Dying World is actually coming to the Cafe Colonial the 14th.
That's what I was going to just mention.
Yeah.
That's the 14th of October.
Yep, and then the 15th in San Francisco.
Okay, yeah.
So they're all the boys are going to be out here for a few days. See all the hayfields that I grew up in.
Right. I love it. And like I said, I for all the viewers out there, guys, just like I said, where can they find some of your stuff? Let's go through your social media with it. I know we showed a little bit of your Facebook here.
Oh yeah, so it's bodega_Ray on Instagram, which is a moniker for Bodega Bay, which is where I would like to have my bones buried. For anyone watching this, please bury me there. But yeah, so I kind of use it more as like a marketing tool as far as anything else. So I mean, you get Geeky in there, you get Our Dying World there, and then you also get Exile there. So anything going on with any of those three is can be found there. And then we're all on Spotify, and anywhere that you can get the music, really, like iTunes and any streaming service like that. So
awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome, man. Well, like I said, dude, it's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure with you, man.
Absolutely, man. You know I love you.
You too.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in to Derek Friends Podcast. For all up-to-date content, make sure you hit that subscribe, man. Show me your love. Show me your appreciation. Leave some comments. Once again, guys, I appreciate you guys. Have a good night.
Thank you for your time.